looks than swift.
Australia versus Afghanistan in the last week of league stage action, with both teams in the hunt for the semis. Who could have seen it coming at the start of the competition? But that's what's happened, because Afghanistan, having already had a Dream World Cup, they dare to dream as they come up against an Australia side who have started doing Australia things when it comes to World Cups. 5 wins on the bounce for them, 4 out of 5 for Afghanistan. That sets us up nicely for match number 39, coming to us from Wankhede Stadium. Welcome to Maruti Suzuki Arena, presents ESPN Cricket for Matchday, powered by Qatar Airways. In the company this afternoon of Steve Harmison in our studios. Good to see you, Steve.
Yep.
If you had punted on this, you would have been sitting probably somewhere far from a studio.
You would, yeah, and I think anywhere other than the Wankhede Stadium in Mumbai, and you think Afghanistan have a chance, because the way Australia's probably strength isn't playing spin, and that is something that Afghanistan is very, very strong at, with the amount of overs they bowled of spin in this tournament. So I think it's set up for a good game, and hopefully if Afghanistan put up a good fight and a good show, I don't think it's just a foregone conclusion that Australia turn up into Mumbai, walk away with 2 points. I think this is going to be a very, very good game of cricket.
Yeah, we've also got the company of Urooj Mumtaz for this one. Urooj, good afternoon to you. And as Steve says, we could have, if we saw the previous scorecards when Afghanistan and Australia have met at the World Cup, we'll just figure that out. Urooj should be with us soon. And you see previous World Cup meetings between these two sides, 2015, 2019. Australia had it really easy. David Warner coasted in both those games. But seeing what Afghanistan have done, there's no question of breathing easy in this one.
Oh, absolutely. There's the completely different side, Afghanistan, compared to what they were the last World Cup and the World Cup before that. They've just come into the game learning about the longer format of one-day cricket, i.e. 50-over cricket. In 2015, they're getting better throughout 2019, but still, novices at the 50-over game. 2020 was always going to be their strength. But now they've got a formula. They've got an opening batting unit who can challenge the power play. Got a middle order of strength, well led by Shahidi. So when I look at this Afghanistan side, and you look at the results there, the top two stand out. England and Pakistan, beating them two, they beat them comfortably. And then Sri Lanka, it was another good win. And you expect them to beat the Netherlands, but there was still pressure on them to obviously do that. And when you look at where they are as development as a side, they're all coming into a good age. They've got experience with the likes of Nabi, and they've got the magicians of Mujib and Rashid Khan. This is an all-round very, very good and very, very strong Afghanistan side who I've got no doubt Australia won't be taken lightly.
And it's not just those wins, right, but also the manner. Yeah. When we look at that, 8 wickets against Pakistan chasing 280, 7-wicket canter against Sri Lanka chasing nearly 250. And you saw composure. While we've known the Afghan batting that we speak often in T20s, that they've got that setup of disruptive players who can make things exciting and make it easier to win T20s. And ODI victory also requires that sense of composure, which they've been getting through the likes of Ahmed Shah or Hashmatullah Shahidi, the captain.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that largely comes down to the off-field chat, the planning and preparation. And somebody I know really well, and obviously Jonathan Trot, the way he performed throughout his career, he's meticulous in how he went about his job. So I expect him as a coach to leave no stone unturned, to make sure that every single scenario has been sort of discussed through in preparation for this tournament, coming into and making sure the planning of different scenarios and where the team potentially could be, especially when chasing, and making sure you break it down and keep it as simple as possible. And I think that's what Afghanistan have done really, really well. They've made sure that when they have chased, they haven't let themselves get too far behind the run rate, even though the scores that are on the board are decent. And they've made sure they've chased them down not with ease, but with calmness and with a clear thought of how they're going to go about their business. For me, they've been fantastic.
Correct. We do have Urooj with us now. Urooj, if you can hear me, good afternoon to you. Before we start setting up the game, just initial thoughts. Afghanistan have been the story of this World Cup. For a side that had only won one men's ODI World Cup game before this, to be on the kind of run they are on, you know that all of a sudden Australia versus Afghanistan is a fixture no one in the world is taking for granted.
Well, I don't think anyone's taking Afghanistan for granted, the way they've obviously started this tournament and been able to topple relatively higher ranked sides. And like you're saying, games which you probably would brush aside by giving the likes of Australia 2 points and moving on. It hasn't been the case. And what's really good for Afghanistan is prior to the tournament or even in the early days, they were being tagged as the top two in the top order, putting up runs if they would bat first. And then that would set up the game. And chasing was a poor record for them. They've actually turned that around on 3 games on a trot, which they've chased down quite comfortably with command in that batting, knowing how to structure those innings. So chasing has been something which you can now not put as a weakness for Afghanistan, which makes them that much more formidable now.
100%. We do have news from the toss where Afghanistan have won and elected to bat first. So they are looking to put scoreboard pressure on Australia and look to defend that total later in the evening. Team news will come up in a bit and we will start setting up this game. But before we start looking ahead, we must look back because Bangladesh versus Sri Lanka on Monday was an absorbing contest, one that only further dented England's Champions Trophy qualification hopes. But amid all that smoke in Delhi, there was so much fire, Steve. I know you've already shared your thoughts. But after everything that happened, the fireworks continued later because if you look at the words, some strong words spoken from both parties. Let's just take our viewers through it. Angelo Mathews, who was in the line of fire, the first man in the history of international cricket to have been timed out. Here's what he had to say after the game. It was obviously disgraceful from Shakib and Bangladesh. If they want to take wickets like that and stoop down to that level, there's something wrong drastically. I've got no words to explain it. In my 15 years of playing, I've never seen a team or a player stoop so low. You said when it happened that this is not something you would have wished to see on a cricket field, having slept on it. Anything different, and how much do you relate with Angelo Mathews' words?
He's frustrated. He's not exactly sitting on the fence, is he? He's letting everybody in the world know what he feels. Rightly so. I still can't fathom out how they've got to the scenario they've got to somebody being timed out. 150 years this great game's been played, and for the first time it to happen is in that situation is so bizarre. He defended, he was there on time. He defended that, why should I bat without a helmet from a safety point of view? And he feels aggrieved, and I'm 100% with him. I just think common sense, like he mentioned, I've seen that interview after the game. He said common sense about 5 or 6 times, and common sense didn't prevail in this. And that, for me, I didn't understand. I didn't get the ICC bit either when the 4th umpire came out and said, irrespective of him helmet being broken, he wasn't in a position within 2 minutes to take first ball. Well, there have been countless amount of times of batters around the world not being in a position to take the first ball like that. So I just think the whole thing was a mess. The worrying thing for me was, yes, I haven't changed my opinion of it. I think Angelo Mathews was hard done by. The concerning thing for me was what Shakib Al Hasan had said after the game.
Yeah, Shakib's words must also be repeated. He said, it's in the laws. I don't know if it is right or wrong, but I felt like I was at war. I had to take a decision to make sure my team wins, and whatever I had to do. Right or wrong, there will be debates, but if it's in the rules, I don't mind taking those chances.
No, not for me. Not for me. I'm struggling with that one. It's not a war, it's a game of cricket. Fair enough, it's 2 points, it's World Cup things at stake, Champions Trophy that goes with it, but there are bigger things than what happened last night, and to protect the game, the integrity of the game, I think it could have been a better outcome. We're not at war. We're playing a cricket match, and the win at all cost mentality. People talk about the spirit of cricket. Spirit of cricket's never been there. Spirit of cricket's gone. It went years and years and years ago. There's nearly every cricketer that's played the game has contradicted the spirit of cricket at some point on a daily basis. So when anybody throws that at me, I sort of take that with a pinch of salt. But I think what we are is, we have got a game of cricket. the eyes of the world watching, and children out there. We've seen the Wankhede come in far too frequently for my liking. And if we're going to start timing people onto the field, I think we're going to a level where we just don't need this game to go to.
Yeah, it is Asia's fiercest rivalry in the last few years. Lived up to its billing, but perhaps not in the way any of us ideally wanted to see. It's time to look ahead to this game now, because Afghanistan-Australia, so much on the line. As we informed you, Afghanistan will be batting first. And Steve, that's in keeping with what we've seen at the Wankhede so far. 3 games at this venue. All 3 have seen huge totals posted, and then a complete blowout almost from all the chasing sides, which is actually in contradiction to what we've usually observed at Wankhede, which has the convention of being a chase-friendly ground.
Yeah, it's normally a very good chase-friendly ground because the size of the ground, the goodness of the pitch, fast outfield. But in this tournament, it just seems that if you can get into the bat first, when it seems as though the pitch is at its best, you can put pressure on the opposition by just literally scoreboard pressure, the weight of runs alone. And I think great for Afghanistan. I think this contest, even more so now, is set up for an absolute beauty of a game, because if Bangladesh go and score, even if they score something in between the numbers that we see on the screen, if Bangladesh get 350 to 370 with the spinners that the spinners that Afghanistan's got, they are going to take some beating, because the way the spin bowlers are bowled for Afghanistan, if they get a number anywhere over 3, potentially 350, I think it could be a long afternoon for Australia.
I want to chew your brains on that, actually, in terms of how they select their team. It is their clear strength, and we'll have team news for you in just a bit. But just before we get that, while it is your strength, spin, this has been a venue which has not been that favourable for spinners. Do you back your own strength, or do you try to recalibrate seeing what the venue offers?
Well, I was sat in this chair a few days ago and said, no, they've got to keep playing the spin. Nawar, he bowls so well over Farooqi, and then Farooqi came and got 3 wickets and bowled very, very well. So what do I know? But when I look at this side, I think the spin option is there and it's good, but I think that tells its own story. Pace bowlers have been more dominant on this surface. But if you've got a game plan and your game plan's working, you stick to it. So I think there's comfortable argument on both sides to go, right, we play the surface or we play our game plan. And our game plan is we've won 4 out of the last 5. So if that is working, why change it?
Well, the suspense is over, and they agree with you. Afghanistan are going spin heavy against Australia. Noor Ahmed does get a game. He replaces Fazal Haq Farooqi. So Afghanistan going the way as you wish to see, Steve. You've got all 4 spinners in there. You've got Nabi with his off spin, Rashid, Mujib and Noor Ahmed, with Naveen and Azmatullah Omarzai to cover the pace.
Yeah, it's a side that's worked. It's a side that's worked very, very well. And now they're batting first. It's a side that works even better, because the length of time the sun's on the surface, the length of time players are running up and down the surface, and then 50 overs of Australia bowling on it. I think it now suits Afghanistan's game plan to make sure that when they do come to bowl, then they've got all the tools that they need. And the spin bowling options, it's not as though they've got 4 spin bowlers who are the same, or they've got 4 spin bowlers who you feel are not these are game-changing spin bowlers. Yeah. They've got all different variations. So for me, I think it's exciting that Afghanistan have gone this way, and I think it's also exciting from the game point of view that Afghanistan have won the toss and have decided to bat first, because that, for me, puts a lot of pressure on Australia in the second innings, and it's a big if, that Afghanistan go and get a total which potentially they can defend.
There's big news from the Australian camp too. Stephen Smith, it appeared, was having a bout of vertigo on the eve of the game, and he misses out, which in a way solved a selection puzzle for them, because you already had Mitchell Marsh returning, you had Glenn Maxwell returning. Both of them are back, and along with Cam Green, who we'd expected would sit out, Steve Smith is the one who misses. Given the ailment, it was on the cards, but that is experience missing in your 11.
Yeah, it was. I think it'd be interesting to see which way they would have gone, Marsh or Steve Smith. I think they would have gone Steve Smith in the side, and because of that experience and the know-how and his ability. But we don't know. This could be obviously it was an easy option to leave Cam Green out and bring in Maxwell. Had to come back in, even though you look at what he did on the golf cart and you can't believe that somebody can be as not as stupid, but as in the middle of a World Cup at the time when you didn't need any more headlines brought on your cricket team.
Yeah.
He has to miss the game because of an act of silliness. Mitch Marsh, I think he had to come back in. He's performed beautifully in this tournament so far, and he gives you that impetus at number 3 in the power play if you lose an early wicket, because Head and Warner, it gives you 10 overs of going hard at the power play. So I'm not surprised that Marsh has come back in and Maxwell's come back in. But it would be interesting to see if Steve Smith didn't have the vertigo, which way they would have gone. I would have gone with Smith, but obviously the decision's been made easier for them because Steve Smith's not fit to play.
Yeah, and it is a curious one, because if you look at the numbers so far in this World Cup, Marnus Labuschagne's actually had a much better time than Steve Smith has. 272 runs for him compared to 205 for Steve Smith. And the other bit of it, Steve, that's really interesting is that Smith, the 5 times he's faced spin this World Cup, he had gotten out to spin all 5 occasions. So Labuschagne, perhaps, given the bowling mix that we now see Afghanistan coming up with in that number 4 role, the more informed player at the moment.
Yeah, it might be just a nice, handy accident that has come just at the right time, that if Steve Smith's going to miss a game, it's the one against Afghanistan, where spin has been not his friend so far in this tournament. But I'm not sure I'd want to go into a semi-final or a final if I was Australia without Steve Smith. It's like, you get the argument of somebody like Rahul or Virat Kohli, and I think that's where it is with that group. Rahul, a fantastic player, same as Marnus Labuschagne, but the record that Steve Smith's got in world cricket, in ODI cricket, in all formats of cricket, the experience he's had around the world and in major tournaments, i.e. World Cup semi-finals and finals, I think you're a good side if you leave Steve Smith out.
Yeah, we've had our technical difficulties through this afternoon, but I have great news for us. I believe Urooj Mumtaz is back with us. Urooj, good to have you. If you can hear me, yes, fingers crossed for all of us here. But Australia go into this game, just quickly getting your thoughts on the team. Afghanistan have gone with all 4 spinners at Wankhede, and Australia will be without Steve Smith.
Yeah, I think Afghanistan made that first choice when Noor Ahmed came in against Pakistan, and it paid dividends then. We know Afghanistan is a quality spin side, and that middle period where they're going to bowl their 4 spinners will be crucial in order to sort of, when Australia do come out, to restrict Australia. Again, it's a high scoring venue. It'll be how much first Afghanistan get, but then how quickly they are to adapt to holding their lengths and being consistent, because the ball can travel. So Australia, again, a quality side. Mitch Marsh is back in, Glenn Maxwell is back in, and Maxwell can play the spin, as we all know, quite significantly well. So I think it's about how many Afghanistan get up front. Then their bowlers can do the job, because a subpar score will be difficult to hold Australia back.
Just before I move to the Australian selections, I've probed Steve on this. Just want to get your thoughts. The Afghan team selection, the fact that they go with 4 spinners on a venue which at times historically can have the presence of dew, and they opt to bat first. It also speaks a bit about the confidence in the setup that, hang on, we're not going to go by history. There's a setup that's working and we're going to go with it.
Well, I think it has to do with the first inning scores here. We've seen, 3 games here, all above 350. So I think that's where they've gone. Their batting off late has been in form, not just 1 or 2, but numbers 3, 4, 5, 6. Everyone has been scoring. They've got the confidence of chasing, but I think it's more about their batting form. If they can put up an above par score with or without dew, I think they back their bowlers to sort of still have enough control. So I think it oozes of confidence, and they have the right to have that confidence probably as well, because of the way and in the manner they won the games in the past 3 or 4 that they've played. So I think, like coming back to the earlier conversation, I don't think Australia will be taking Afghanistan easy by any standard at all. But I think their decision is more about the runs in the wicket, batting up front, as at least in this World Cup, Wankhede has shown in terms of numbers.
Right. Let's focus on that change for Australia. Mitchell Marsh, who missed out on the last game as he was back home for personal reasons, is back. While he obviously makes any lineup, the Australian lineup, look stronger on paper, there is a bit of a dilemma, Steve, because he can't open now that Travis Head is back. And if you look at the numbers, there's a big jump off between Mitch Marsh as an opener and Mitch Marsh at number 3. Why do you think that happens?
Possibly concentration. When you go out there as an opener, you see the game in front of you, you walk out to the middle, you take your guard whether you're first batting number 1 or number 2, but you're in the game and you're in the build-up, and possibly there is something in that. You look at his numbers at number 3 and number 4, they're not as good, and batting at number 3 is such a difficult thing to do because you have to concentrate from literally ball 1, but you might not get in until either 12th or 14th, sometimes beyond 15th over. And if you're an emotional person where your emotions go up and down, all of a sudden you could be walking out to the middle where you're on a little bit of a come down, and by the time you've managed to grapple with everything that goes with it, you're out and you've made a mistake. So sometimes some people are more comfortable just walking out, seeing the game in front of them and playing it that way. So this, I think, Mitch Marsh, the way he's playing and performing at this minute in time, and the touch he's in, I don't think them numbers are something to worry about. I think the way he's batting at this minute in time, I think he's in such a decent touch of form. I think he'll just go out there, see it and hit it and continue whatever happens from David Warner or from Travis Head. Australia have gone a bit like England over the course of when they changed the sort of complex of 50 over cricket and the white ball cricket from 2015 onwards, culminating in 2019 winning the World Cup. They basically said for the 10 over power play, we are going to try and get as many as we can, as quick as we can. And I think Marsh, Head and Warner at 1, 2, 3, they're more or less playing like 3 openers, and they just carry on the momentum from whatever happens of whoever comes out.
Interesting you bring up the power play, because Urooj, does it potentially point to a player who much prefers that luxury of the power play? Mitch Marsh, we've seen how he takes attacks to the cleaners. We've seen it so often in India itself over the course of the many ODIs Australia played here. But often if you do get the openers, get you a good start, and then you walk in and it's not the power play, is that what might be ailing Mitch Marsh when he comes at number 3?
Certainly a significant factor with the 2 fielders out, with a hard new ball that comes onto the bat. Mitch Marsh likes to take the pace on and is very good to use that pace as well, whether straight down the ground or square of the wicket. It'll be interesting to see if you can get more numbers on those 11 or 13 innings at number 3 as to where his entry point was, whether it was within the power play or it was after the power play. So, but like Steve is saying, because he's in such good form, and Australia had that luxury of that firepower in 1, 2 and 3. But I think it does become slightly more difficult with the field restrictions, with the ball being past 10 overs. Sometimes it could even be the fact that you want to continue the momentum that the openers are set up, and the game, obviously the spinners come in, the paces off the wicket, the fielding restrictions come in, so those big shots that are available in the power play might not be on. So again, I don't think Australia would read too much into it. He's a quality player. And like we've been talking about, their tempo of playing for that 1, 2 and 3 till Labuschagne, or if Steve Smith was playing, they come in, it's a different role for them. But the top 3 have a very defined role as to get as many as quickly as possible.
Yeah, that is going to be something to keep an eye out towards when Australia come out to chase, depending on what the size of the target is. But with Afghanistan batting first, important to talk about what's been working for them. They're 3 wins in a row, all 3 of them have been chasing. And you've seen, in particular, 2 middle-order batters, Rahmat Shah and Hashmatullah Shahidi, both of whom have often had the sort of strike rates hang over them, and how they approach ODI cricket. It's something we spoke of a lot during the Asia Cup. But you look at Rahmat Shah, that composure, half centuries in the last 2 of those half centuries not only have aided the chase, but they've also come at a strike rate above 90. Yeah,
they've batted really well. They've had a game plan and a formula, and that, I think, has come from the coaching department before the World Cup, talking about different scenarios and different situations. And I think it tells you leading in after the Asia Cup that the middle order has worked. Ramit Shah he's been excellent in this tournament so far, along with the captain and Azmatullah as well. So I think that middle order is working beautifully for Afghanistan, and I think that's why they've batted first. I think that's why, if they didn't have any confidence on their batting unit, you might have seen them make a different decision at the toss. But I think because of the way the team is batting, and to see the numbers of what's happened in the Wankhede over the course of this tournament, I think a confident side has gone, right, we're going to get a big number here, where a less confident side, who had been beaten a few times, might have gone, you know what, we'll try and contain them to a number, and then we'll go and chase it on a very, very good wicket, small ground. So I think a confident side like what Afghanistan are with that middle order, it's building up for a good game.
Urooj, Rahmat Shah and Hashmatullah Shahidi both steering the ship so magnificently in those last three chases. Shahidi, in fact, unbeaten for all three. How good have they been? And secondly, how do they reassess now that they have the role of setting up a score, and a big score potentially for Australia to chase?
Yeah, I think just continuing on from Steve's point, and you just made the point that out of those three chases, he's been not out. So he's actually led the team home and hasn't given up, say, with 30, 40 runs short, which is a very good sign of somebody who's obviously can read the game well, can construct an innings and then finish games off. And I think that's what Afghanistan obviously sort of derive confidence from, batting first at the Wankhede. I still feel that they would want to go and make use of the power play with Zadran and Gurbaz up front. But they do have sort of the Shahidi, Shah, even Umar Zai has scored 150, I think it was against Pakistan. Even Ali Khail has got some runs. So that four, obviously led by Shah at 3 and Shahidi at 4, will be key in setting up a score. I would still feel like, because the wicket, obviously depending on at least what the history said at the Wankhede wicket, they should look and make use of the power play, because they would like to set up a big score here. But I think Shahidi and Shah both have shown that they know the art of constructing an innings in one day, because 3 and 4 can be very difficult positions to bat. And they've got the runs. One of the top 4 here would like to probably get a big 100 with the rest that bat around him to get that 300 plus score, which will probably be key for Afghanistan going in first.
Right. If Afghanistan are to dominate the middle overs, they will have to do it against Australia's two strongest bowlers of this tournament, both of whom have thrived in that phase. Spoken a lot about Adam Zampa, and we'll continue to, given the kind of World Cup he has been having. But Steve, I want to focus on Pat Cummins first, because he's turned himself into quite the middle overs disruptor, if I may. He's gone wicketless only once. And most vitally, he's broken 450-plus partnerships. What's he doing differently in the middle overs?
He's keeping it simple. He's keeping it simple and basically putting pressure on the batter literally by putting pressure, bowling. He's bowled very, very good lines, very, very good lengths, and said to the batter, right, you're going to have to hit me off them lines and lengths. He bowls at a good speed. He's very tall. He does generate a lot of bounce. And I think what we're seeing here for me is we're seeing the bowler's never been in question. The captain's been in question. And I think what we're seeing here is a captain who has captained the team very well in the last few games, and his bowling is just taking a little bit more of a boost from it. And for me, Pat Cummins is one of the best seam bowlers in the world in all formats of cricket. And I think he's shown in this tournament that the more his captaincy is getting better, it's just elevating his bowling to that little bit higher level. He's difficult to get away in the middle. He's difficult to rotate strike around because of his impeccable line and impeccable length. And he basically says to the batter, well, if you want to continue that partnership of 50, you're going to have to hit me off that line and length. And unfortunately for the batters, they haven't been good enough to do it.
Yeah, and with Cummins doing what he is doing and Zampa having the kind of World Cup he's having, you've got something really strong in the middle overs for Australia. Urooj, not a partnership many would have seen coming, Cummins and Zampa being as crucial to Australia's bowling. Everything we've discussed, Zampa with his form and the Afghan middle order, does that potentially become the most crucial factor in this contest?
Yeah, let's not forget they come after Hazelwood and Stark, who are a force to reckon with him themselves. Obviously, Stark with the pace, full in trying to swing the ball. Hazelwood probably the most consistent line and length bowler in terms of that. So it's as difficult as they are, and Cummins as well. I think it's just discipline. The control that he has, along with those disciplined lines, like Steve said, it's just consistent pressure. The batsman having to force the issue rather than sort of Cummins trying anything, which has probably been the way to go in this World Cup. You've seen the successful bowlers hold length. Adam Zampa in his post-match, in his previous match, said that he's probably the best 10 overs he's bowled in a while, which just goes to show that Australia is peaking at the right time, and that middle over phase, which has been so crucial in this World Cup in order to keep the momentum and keep scoring to sort of stay up with the game's tempo, is not going to be easy, because it's not just a string of balls during an over, it's bowling in partnerships, one over after the other, that Zampa and Cummins have been able to mount pressure on decent middle order batters. So I think Afghanistan's batting will be really tested today.
Yeah, and Adam Zampa's story this World Cup mirrors Australia's campaign. The first 2 games, he was wicketless. Australia didn't win any of those ever since. He's gone on some run, 19 wickets now in those last 5 games, which leaves him just 4 away of Muttiah Muralitharan's tally for the most by a spinner in a single edition of the Men's ODI World Cup. He's also chasing another kind of history in this game. He's had 5 successive games of taking 3 wickets or more, which is already a first at the World Cup. If he does so again, he equals Omar Gul's mark, which is the all-time ODI record of 6 matches back-to-back taking 3 firsts. So should be interesting how Adam Zampa goes, how the Afghan middle order goes, but before that, the top order, they're already out there. So we will wind down soon, not before we get predictions. Steve, Afghanistan batting first, trying to lay a marker. Where do you see them finishing?
They've got to score something in the region of 300 plus. So from that point of view, that's to make a game of it. I think if to win the game, they've got to get 350 plus. But I can see Afghanistan scoring around about 320, and this being a very, very good cricket match.
Ooh, 320, says Steve. Urooj, where do you see Afghanistan finishing?
Just looking at the way Australia has been bowling in terms of quality, obviously their fielding unit has come together as well. I don't see Afghanistan scoring 300 or more. I think Australia will be able to restrict them around the 280, 285 mark.
All right. So a decent range from our 2 experts. Thank you so much, Urooj and Steve. Look forward to your company. Where will Afghanistan end? What is the right score? All the action is already underway, and if you haven't already, go ahead and download the ESPN Cricket Info mobile app to keep pace with this game, which has so much to do. Check out the points table and you will know the scenarios. What do Afghanistan need to do? What do Australia need to do? Their fates do lie in their hands, but what does it mean to others? Check out the scenarios, check everything else out on that app, and be sure to join us. We'll be back as soon as this innings ends on Maruti Suzuki Arena, presents ESPN Cricket Info Matchday, powered by Qatar Airways.
Stunning looks, then swift,